Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Tuesday, August 10th, 2021, and today we're going to be talking about the state of New York and Governor Andrew Cuomo, soon to be former Governor Andrew Cuomo, who amidst sexual harassment allegations that were confirmed by the New York State Attorney General, will now resign as governor of the state of New York, effective in 2 weeks from today. So, Andrew Cuomo is someone I made a video about yesterday, saying that he should be resigning from his position given the circumstances that he is in, after multiple women came forth and said that he had sexually harassed them and then waited on the New York State Attorney General to come to a conclusion that he did in fact sexually harass these women. Andrew Cuomo is now in a position where he is not in power whatsoever. At this point in time, he is the governor until 14 days from today, but officially speaking, the Democratic Party has turned on him. The Republican Party was never on his side, and independents had always sided with the GOP when it came down to the issue of Andrew Cuomo as governor amidst these allegations that he should be out. The state of New York, an overwhelmingly Democratic state, still does not favor Andrew Cuomo regardless of how partisan they are. 70% of voters across the state of New York believe that Andrew Cuomo needed to resign. His top aides fled the state house, and what's happening now is that because of public pressure and pressure from politicians on both sides, Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, Republicans across the United States, almost every single one of them, notable ones at that, all calling on the resignation of Andrew Cuomo, and the pressure built up, and he ended up resigning as governor of the state of New York. So why is this important? Well, first things first, we have a new governor in the state of New York. There will be the first woman governor. We'll get into a little bit more information about her. She's the current lieutenant governor, and there's actually some rumors that she has not spoken to Andrew Cuomo since the beginning of the allegations began. For whatever reason, we haven't heard exactly why and much from this lieutenant governor, but that seems to be the rumor that is circulating around different forms of social media and the news media about the relationship or the lack thereof between the lieutenant governor and the governor, this being Andrew Cuomo. And if we talk about Andrew Cuomo in terms of his electoral history, for someone who was embraced by the American media just a year ago, has now fallen out of favor because he has been purely exposed for a number of disgusting mishaps that he had taken part in. I wouldn't even try to declare them as mistakes. The intentions were there. As the New York State Attorney General said that his office and his serving as governor created a field of intimidation and scare for many of these women in these positions, and that there were just a number of advances made by Governor Cuomo that prompted this sexual harassment on his part towards these women that ultimately led to this conclusion that he absolutely did it. But I was bringing up his electability in the past because Andrew Cuomo was very popular across the state of New York. As many Democratic candidates are in this state, they typically perform very, very well. Andrew Cuomo actually won his first term in 2010, and then in 2014 he won re-election. In 2018, he won re-election. And in 2022, he actually announced back 2 years ago that he would be running for a fourth term as New York governor. So can you imagine just the legacy that he would have had this not come out, had these women not step forward to expose the otherwise very popular governor in the state of New York, who was a shoo-in for the fourth term? If you take a look at the polling data there was no indication that Andrew Cuomo was going to lose up until the time of these allegations. The race was ranked likely in solid D just because it was a fourth term and there was some discussion about powerful Republicans running in 2022. But regardless, he was heavily polling ahead by notable names such as Elise Stefanik, and even in potential primary matches between Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and others, Andrew Cuomo still pulled ahead. So all in all, what's happening here is that he was in a position of power. He was in a very powerful one across the state of New York. But because of the insurmounting pressure, he finally cracked and decided that it would be best on him to resign. His official statement saying that, quote here, "Given the circumstances, the best way I can help now is if I step aside and let government get back to government. And therefore, that is what I'll do, because I work for you. And doing the right thing is doing the right thing for you." He took no questions, did not really expand much about his actions, just saying that he will not be the governor in 14 days. And largely, I think, because we talked about yesterday how the state delegation the state assembly, which is sort of like the House of Representatives, and then you also have the state Senate, both of which had enough members to say that they wanted Cuomo out, enough to impeach him and convict him of these things. So now that he's in this position, he can resign, and the state won't exactly go up fully upended on him the way that they would have normally, but there will still be some type of discussion about what the steps are moving forward for Andrew Cuomo, that this resignation simply is not the end of it. But we now know that Callie Hochul, and I believe I am pronouncing her name correctly. If I'm not, please let me know. I did not know much about her before. She was the Lieutenant Governor of New York. I do apologize if I am mispronouncing her name. I really try to get names correctly. Kathy Hochul will become New York's first woman governor in history. I mean, New York has never had a woman as governor of the state. So this will be a major thing, I would think, for women across the state of New York and across the country, that, amidst such an unfortunate situation for previously one of America's favorite governors, that, who was viewed as a champion for women, ended up being just as predatory as the men that he openly opposed. And now a woman will be replacing him in the highest office in the state of New York. In fact, she becomes the first woman to represent the largest state by population, as a woman governor. So this is a big deal, I would say, for women in politics, the fact that New York finally has its first woman governor, and that she will likely be able to soar into re-election in 2022. You see, while she wasn't expected to be a top contender for 2022, as if primarying Andrew Cuomo, just simply because I showed you his electoral history, he was largely popular. Now she is in a very good position to sort of just walk up into this race and just place herself as the incumbent and end up winning this race. It is absolutely doable for the lieutenant governor. She can be in this position. This is something that will be a big plus for Kathy Hochul, and she will likely win re-election in 2022, or technically win her first term as governor of the state of New York. But this Cuomo announcement actually was quite surprising to many members of the mainstream media. If you take a look at Andrew Cuomo's news here, there are some opinion articles that say Andrew Cuomo did the least Andrew Cuomo thing possible. Andrew Cuomo has a large reputation of pushing back on things such as this, not nearly as extensive in terms of the allegations, but when criticized by the media, he does not take that lightly. In fact, when these allegations first surfaced, he said, "Wait on the New York State Attorney General," and the voters did. Andrew Cuomo wasn't unpopular when the allegations first came about. In fact, his popularity remained for the past couple of months. These allegations began in March of 2021. So it took a very long time for him to fall out of favor from the American public and from the New York public, all because of the Attorney General report. So with the Attorney General report reporting that Andrew Cuomo did, in fact, by their standard, by their investigation, sexually harass these women, then he fell out of favor. But up until that point, he had been either changing the subject, attacking it full force, and even when the New York State Attorney General came out and said that he did it, he had a statement and a report prepared, an 80-plus page report that mainly consisted of photos of Andrew Cuomo kissing, hugging, touching other people, regardless of sexual orientation, regardless of skin color, regardless of gender, whatever it might be. Andrew Cuomo ensured that there were 60-plus pages of just pictures of him in similar positions as described by many of these women. But obviously, no one fell for the bait. No one fell for this type of argument against it. And thus, the public opinion did not change on Andrew Cuomo. Voters were not convinced that this was enough to keep him in office. So he turned to end up resigning. But it was very surprising that Cuomo was resigning. Many people at CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, people who worked closely with him, did not expect him to resign. And while impeachment was near around the corner, and a primary challenger, if not impeachment, was also near around the corner, regardless of that, many people still expected Andrew Cuomo to just stick his foot down and end up in this position where he was actively combating these allegations, actively combating the report from the New York State Attorney General. In fact, he suggested that there was some type of political bias within the investigation, despite earlier on saying that she was a well-respected Attorney General and that the conclusive results should be listened to. Well, obviously, the Attorney General did not cave into political pressure from Andrew Cuomo and ended up exposing him for what he had done. So there is a lot here that is going on with the impeachment inquiry investigation starting its timeline yesterday and a number of other things coming out. Andrew Cuomo was done for. We knew that this was the end of the road for him. And for someone who was actually viewed in many regards as potentially a hopeful for 2020 or 2024 as president of the United States, I mean, I kid you not, Sean Hannity had gone on to television to discuss the possibility of the Democratic Party replacing Joe Biden as the nominee with Andrew Cuomo just because of a lot of the good press that he had received. I mean, Andrew Cuomo even wrote a book about handling the COVID-19 pandemic. Surprisingly enough, even though we are still very much within the pandemic and it had not been fully handled. But he talked about, his struggles and the way that he was able to lead in this position, and many people bought the book. Many people had him on their news sites, their television sets, because he was just a popular guy all around. He seems to be, in many regards, a people person, right? So it was very quick for the American media to pick up on him and begin to adore him and glamorize him across the nation. And many people stuck with that and liked him for that. But now that these allegations are out, the entire public has changed. This guy went from a year ago today being a champion in many people's eyes of COVID-19, even though there were many major missteps that many people still don't talk about today. Many things when it comes down to nursing homes and a number of other scandals that seem to have swept under the rug the same way these sexual allegations did right in the beginning. I mean, you are talking about these being talked about in March, and then all of a sudden, because he is handling COVID-19 better than other governors, it seems to be forgotten about until the New York State Attorney General releases their report. And the media frenzy, it's like wildfire. They go left, right, all attacking Cuomo. Joe Biden says resign. All of these Republicans say resign. Fox News, you have Elise Stefanik saying on there that they need to expedite this. Democrats cannot be hypocritical about this because they called on many Republicans to resign. But now that Andrew Cuomo has resigned, it continues to set the precedent, mainly on the Democratic Party side. Andrew Cuomo resigning is in a very similar fashion to the way that Al Franken resigned from the United States Senate. These Democrats cannot serve in office while actively saying they are pro-women and actively call on other members of Congress, other governors, other statewide elected officials, other candidates to either not run or to resign from their positions because they were the perpetrators of these sexual harassment allegations, of these sexual harassment claims as detailed by the women. For the case of Al Franken, that was right in the midst of the Alabama Senate special election in which Roy Moore was running as the GOP nominee. Many Democrats had slammed Roy Moore for his sexual harassment allegations, especially towards minors. Then all of a sudden, Al Franken saw a number of allegations spring up against him. The Senate Democrats said, if we are actively calling on him to not win his election, and calling on voters in Alabama to elect Doug Jones as a Democrat from that state, you cannot be here. And you know what he said? He said that I will resign. For the case of Andrew Cuomo, I think it was a much more trickier position. For him to resign, I'm sure there was just much more. I mean, you're talking about quite literally the president of the United States, an otherwise big ally of Cuomo in the past, now saying that he needs to be out of office, that he just simply cannot be in that position. And Andrew Cuomo is a fighter. So for Cuomo to resign in 14 days, to be, completely effective, for him to no longer be governor of the state of New York is quite interesting to see. And the way that it happened so quickly sets an additional precedent for Democrats and Republicans and independents, those in Congress, those in statewide positions, that you need to resign. If you are in a position where, there are, as proven by the state attorney general, sexual harassment allegations against you, that you have taken part in these actions, you did these things towards these men, women, whatever, that you need to resign. That is what the precedent is being set, and it is a good precedent that when you are confronted with such allegations, when confirmed, you're out. You don't need to wait until impeachment. You don't need to wait until a primary challenger. That's essentially saying, I don't respect the people that I had sexually harassed enough to end up out of my office. Enough, though, that I don't feel guilty enough to resign my office of the presidency, the vice presidency, the governorship, the secretary of state, secretary of whatever, attorney general, whatever it might be. It really should go completely up and down. No matter who you are or where you serve, you should be out if these things come against you and they end up being proven to be true through a thorough investigation by a bipartisan investigations, such as the New York State Attorney General, who honestly had no political gain by saying Andrew Cuomo did these sexual harassment claims as described by the women. I mean, for this to have come out is quite surprising to see, because Andrew Cuomo seems to be one of those bully pulpit type of governors where, whether directly or indirectly, just holds a very large political prominence on the national level, enough so that people just do whatever he wants. And, you know, while I don't think that a lot of what we saw in the Andrew Cuomo governorship was negative in terms of handling the pandemic for certain aspects, I'm sure that you can applaud much of what Andrew Cuomo did in respect to that. But you can't ignore this. There was no way for you to try to say that this is something that you can actively ignore. And I did address the double standard. I did address the double standard on the behalf of the Republican Party in the previous video, talking about how, you know, Andrew Cuomo needs to resign, but it's iffy about some of their own candidates. Obviously, that is a double standard, but that does not mean that Andrew Cuomo should not have resigned. And I'm glad he did. He did need to resign in this position because it's good for America. It's good for the state of New York, and it's good for the victims of the sexual harassment. This is something that needed to be done, and I'm glad that Andrew Cuomo did it, but that doesn't make him any less guilty or any less, wrong for what he had done in this position. So, all in all, we will have a new governor, the first female governor of the state of New York, in 2 weeks from today. She will be sworn in, and she will likely be easily reelected as governor of the state of New York in 2022. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my 2022 election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all tomorrow.